Okay. Roy Wood Jr., thank you so much for taking the time to sit down, man. It's great to see you.
Man, good to see you. How you been?
I'm good. I'm good. You've had quite a year. You guest hosted the Daily Show. You hosted the White House Correspondents' Dinner. You got a big tour
Yeah.
coming up. I mean, you've kind of been plugging away at the podcast game for. You've kind of been plugging away at the stand-up game for quite some time. But I mean, do you get the sense that this year feel a little different for you? Like, are you optimistic about what's going to happen?
I mean, this is gonna sound very cliched and canned, but honestly, stand up is high tide, low tide. You just have to keep doing well. So you have a couple of good hits. It's like baseball. There's streaks and there's slumps. I'm in a little bit of a streak right now, but I've been in slumps before and I know what that's like. So the only difference is that in real life, a slump means you may or may not be able to pay your bills. So I try my best to make sure that whatever I'm doing is from a space of building my brand because, a writer strike hit, people be talking about hosting the Daily Show. There might not be no TV no more at the end of this strike. We don't know what's going to happen. So I'm proud of what I've done, but I'm not going to rest on that. I still need to go out and be funny. I'm going on tour this summer, so the jokes need to be sharp. So it's back to the clubs. That was
It's all about the
nice,
next.
kicking
No,
it at a
no,
bunch of,
it's
but
about the
yeah,
next one, not the previous one.
it's
Yeah.
literally the next mission. There's the season 3 ending of 24 is so fucking perfect to explain what stand-up comedy is. And Kiefer Sutherland's character, Jack Bauer, he's just saved the world. He's just done the most amazing, miraculous thing that you could ever, like, no one else could have done it. How did you beat the odds? How did you do it? And he goes and sits in his car and he cries from the stress of the day. And while he's crying, somebody walkie-talkies him. Hey, Jack, we need you for the next whatever the hell is going on. And he just fucking wipes it to, this is Jack Bauer. I'm on the way. And that's how the season 3 ends of 24. And that's literally what entertainment is.
Wow. Well, I want to ask you about the
It's,
correspondence dinner for a second.
yeah.
It must have been a really unique audience because, I mean, you got President Biden right there in front of you, and then some of the other people that you want to kind of roast or do topical humor about, they're also in the room. But it's also famously the same room where a few years ago, Seth Meyers eviscerated Donald Trump right to his face, and being the petty, vindictive man that he is, rumor has it that's what kind of set the spark for him to want to kind of become president and make a run for it. Did you feel the history
Well
and the
played.
gravity of that when you stepped to the mic of like this fucking crazy chapter that started right there in that room?
No, I didn't feel any of that. To me, it was just do your jokes, do your job. The idea that my performance could trigger apocalyptic policies is a lot of weight to put on a single joke. I do not believe that any one joke can change everything. It might be able to change the minds of people who can then go out and be active and change things. But like I wasn't thinking, I better not talk about Ron DeSantis because then he gonna really be president. Like, no, the joke is the joke. We have to address what's going on in the country. And so that's what I did. But I didn't really think about it like that.
I mean, I think in an ideal world, you would be able to use comedy as like as a device for people to kind of change their mind. And you present the joke, and you put it in a unique way, and it's humorous, and it's thoughtful, and it's cogent, and ideally, in theory, the audience would take that in and accept the logic and maybe be open to changing their mind. But as the great Neil Brennan once said, that's like bringing facts to a feelings fight, And so, I mean, do you get the sense that you've ever actually been able to move the needle with some of your comedy, or do you ever get cynical that you're just kind of preaching to the choir, albeit in a very funny way?
I think the job of a comedian is to broadcast what's happening. What happens on the other side of that is out of our control. I think anybody who thinks that their words are these omnipotent things that will change everything. Look at how hard Jon Stewart has had to fight for something as simple and bipartisan as the Zadroga Act. Just, hey, if you're a firefighter and you're down at ground zero, you deserve health care until you die. Just a basic thing. How
You think it
long
would be
does Jon
irrefutable?
Stewart get to the point where Jon Stewart has lost? He's not even trying to be funny about the Zadroga shit anymore, is what I'm trying to say. He's abandoned humor as an effective tool, and now he's like straight, I'm going to hit you with the shame sledgehammer and try and get you to act right. So I don't think about my material in the sense of did this rock make a dent in the thing? It's just my job to present the stuff and what happens on the other side of it. Because when you start getting into cause and effect of your jokes, then for me, I feel like I get more detached from just trying to be funny, which is what I set out to be, and that was the original goal. So, it's nice when you get an email from someone that's on the right side of an issue going, thank you, we're down here doing this stuff, appreciate you for amplifying. That helps me keep going. The Daily Show, I enjoy being more of a conduit for people who don't have access to a camera and a microphone. Like, that's, to me, more rewarding than telling a joke in the studio. I'd much rather be out in the field following somebody that's actually doing the work.
Well, I want to ask you about the Daily Show for a second, because it seems like it would be very easy to make comedy about Trump and the MAGA Republicans, because the hypocrisy is just so flagrant and obvious. But it seems also that sometimes the progressives have a really difficult time being forced to take an honest and critical view about some things that maybe aren't in order in their house as well. And in these kind of tribal times that we live in, it's easy to fall into this mindset that any comedy that's critical of the Democrats or any comedy that's critical of Biden is somehow disloyal, or that you're helping the other side. Take a look at like Bill Maher, for instance. I don't think his disdain for Trump and for the Republicans is any secret, but he's cut a lot of shit from the left by, calling out some things that he thinks are not really in order with some of the progressives. And, with that in mind, I'm wondering about, with the Daily Show, a lot of people tune into that show for expecting a very particular political viewpoint. And I'm wondering, have you noticed any internal conflicts while you work in there for pieces that were pitched that were very critical of the left?
No, you don't get controversy for pitching things that are critical of the left. I think the issue within our show is that you have to have nuance in why you're doing anything. Like, if you look at what Jordan Klepper does with Fingering the Pulse, and he goes out and he talks to constituents. That's essentially a constituent-based segment. It's more conversational, and you're giving people an opportunity to present how and why they view something. Whereas if you look at a studio segment, there has to be a little bit more nuance. If you're just going to go, like, if we're going to use Bill Maher as an example. Bill Maher had a segment on his show not too long ago about Dianne Feinstein. This is back when she had yet to return to chambers to start voting again. So he, as a singular person, is able to attack that from the viewpoint that he best sees fit. Whereas the correspondent, you are also, in a way, honoring the viewpoint of the host. And so, it's a little weird and different for us now because we have a bunch of guest hosts. So the show has a North Star, but there's also the opinions of the guests. And sometimes a lot of the stuff that people want to criticize the left about, it might be something that the guests really don't want to get into. For me, with my guest hosting week, I'm just more of an issue-driven person than I am attacking people. I just don't feel like, I feel like people change, the issues stay the same. So, you get this one deep dive segment called Long Story Short, and you can go into whatever you want to talk about people. But for me, I just want to talk about colleges. I just want to talk about the price of education in that institution. I think corporations are a far larger detriment to this country than politicians. most of the politics in this country are byproducts of the ideology of corporations that fund the politicians who make the policies. So, I don't know. Like, even with the correspondence dinner, I knew that there would be certain jokes that the left wouldn't be feeling, but I can't go up there and not acknowledge Joe Biden in documents and not make a joke about that. I can't. I can't acknowledge. I can't ignore his age and that being a topic of conversation with regards to re-election. Now, how do I make that funny? That's a separate issue. But I think what a lot of people are talking about is figuring out, how do you not turn this into a joke that people use as ammunition to either it's confirmation bias. So I'm going to take anything you joke about, and if I want to be offended, I'm going to be offended. I'm going to say you were ageist. I'm going to say you were mean. I did a school shooting joke, and it was strictly a school shooting joke, but somehow that joke has come out as me being pro-trans. And it's like, well, if that's what you took from the setup, then you missed the joke. Like that, like you're assigning all of this extra shit to jokes, and it's like sometimes it's just a joke.
And there's certain topics, whether it's like, Trump and DeSantis, the person and the topic are the same thing. They're so intertwined, so it's like you can't really joke about their policies without the person, because they've purposefully made them intertwined.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of those things where you have no choice but to kind of dabble in both. You don't have a choice these days.
Was it a very different experience guest hosting as opposed to being a correspondent?
It was easier, like in the sense that, and I'm not saying that hosting's some easy thing to do. It's very difficult, but in terms of the comedic ideology, as a correspondent, you get to just do jokes, which on theory is easy. But if you want to add feeling or emotions or opinions, you're generally not given that runway because there's no time. But as a host, you get to add all of these other intangible prisms to how you feel about something and not just solely make it funny. And I enjoyed that because, that's what I try to do with my stand-up. I try to make some of it funny, but also at the core, I'm trying to make people feel good.
Yeah. I mean, let me ask you this. Do you feel that it's more difficult or that there's more potential for blowback as a black comedian doing content that maybe is critical of the black community, or as a progressive that's doing content that's critical of the left? Is there a separation there?
What's more dangerous, or what leaves you more open to criticism? I think black on black. I think if you are critical of the left but still somehow showing support of the left, then you probably still have some degree of an in, or there will still be people that will give you audience or whatever. Whereas if you're being critical of black people, you got to be very careful about that, bro, because people are going to take that and weaponize that, who have far more sinister intentions to black people. So that's something you gotta be very careful about that.
Yeah.
And you don't know what people are going to use, and that's why, like, in black circles, there's a saying where some stuff is just family business. Certain things you just don't bring out into the mainstream and have a discussion about, because within our community, I think that there are other people that could use those policies and use those conversations to help justify, policy.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I rewatched Imperfect Messenger recently, and I have to say, I think that's one of the most compassionate and honest and just generally like funniest stand-up specials that I've seen in a very long time. Like, it's bravo. It's a fantastic stand-up special. And I would place it in the same category, in the same class as a Chris Rock or a Dave Chappelle or a Richard Pryor, in terms of presenting a black perspective in a very thought-provoking way, But at the same time, I know, on that same topic, both Chappelle and Chris Rock have been really vocal about some of the bits that they've done over the course of their career that they're very uncomfortable with the way that they've been embraced by certain white audiences, whether that's because they're laughing maybe for the wrong reason or because, like you said, they've weaponized that critique and used it to justify or reinforce like existing prejudices that they've already had. I mean, is that something that you think about when you're writing your material?
Yeah, I think about how can this be misunderstood. That's how I think of most jokes now. And you're not going to be bulletproof on that, but you just have to figure out a way. But it also part of that process is, to me, part of that process is about making sure that you're running these jokes and these perspectives in front of black audiences. You're going to be talking about a group of people, or you're going to be bringing an issue to a group of people, then you need to be talking about that in front of those people. Because the reaction, the visceral reaction from audiences is going to help shape the bit to make it right for television so you can be more precise. So you got to step on landmines a couple of times to get to the right place. You know, there's a bit, it's not even, I won't even do the joke, but within Imperfect Messenger, the part where I talk about prison reform and this idea that we want nonviolent drug offenders to get out early and, oh, it's just weed, you should be free. Okay, cool. But there's also violent offenders who got too much time. And that's not part of the conversation, but to me it should be. And that's not to belittle the oh, you got caught with an ounce of weed and you're still in jail and weed is legal. Okay, yeah, let him out. But also that guy that did 20 years for a stabbing who probably should have gotten 5, he should get out too. But that guy did a lot of damage in the black community, so screw him. You know, like that dynamic in that conversation, you know, that it's and ultimately that bit was going a different way, and then I kind of got into a back and forth with an audience member because, you know, for your listeners who don't know, you know, I have a friend that was at a robbery that turned into a murder. He was not inside. He got charged with murder. I don't agree with that law. I don't think that law is right. You're just not going to. But what I learned over the course of presenting that material to audiences, who some of those people have lost family members to domestic issues, to guns and knife violence, right? I discovered, it's not even my place to have an opinion on this. This is a conversation that should be had strictly with victims and lawmakers. Me, the outsider who's never lost someone, shouldn't even be talking about it. And that discovery through the joke bombing a couple of times, I discovered that was the joke and that was the landing point to end on. And that's what I put on television. So you have to be able to step in it. The issue now is that the internet and camera phones have eliminated the incubation period. Intubation, the tube down your throat. The incubation period needed for a joke to grow from the wrong place to the right place. We're not extended that anymore as performers.
I mean, I think that's one of the things that I appreciated most about Imperfect Messenger is that it had this sense of compassion and discovery and learning, and it ended on kind of on a very emotional note without sounding preachy. It didn't end on a big laugh and a big callback, but I think that story, it's wonderful to hear the progression of how that bit came to be, because it was a really emotional moment of that special, you know.
And that was like really where I was trying to get to, is that, you know, even myself, I'm not perfect in the things that I'm, you know, crusading for and fighting for and trying to make right.
So I guess, you know, for most people, if you were to ask them one of their biggest fears, I think the fear of public speaking would rank right up there for most people, or a lot of people. For somebody who basically does that for a living, I'm wondering, do you have a particular moment in a set, especially when it's a really high stakes set, like maybe the White House Correspondents' Dinner, or you're taping a special, is there a particular moment where you really feel that you've got the audience, or that your swagger kicks in? It kind of make almost liken it to that moment in The Wizard of Oz when everything turns from black and white to color. Like, is that an apt analogy? Like,
You don't want to get too arrogant, but you definitely know when, okay, I know what I'm doing here, and I'm confident in the rest of my material. For the Correspondents' Dinner, it was the Dominion voting joke, which was, I think, the third joke. No,
so
it was
when
the
that
second.
landed,
It was
you
the
kind of
second
got the
joke.
sense that did the butterflies disappear and it turns a little bit
Yeah.
more into like fun instead of torture?
Yeah, well, not fun, but just, okay, you know what you're doing, now execute. So the boat's not taking on water, now we can paddle. You've gotten that first, it's like a quarterback, you get that first completion in the Super Bowl, and now you're just playing football again. Because the Joe Biden joke, the first joke where I hand him the classified documents, that wasn't a joke that I ran in the comedy clubs. That was just one that I just kind of threw out there. you
And
know,
did you have
and
to?
it,
Did
and
you
it
tailor that
worked.
set? Did you tailor that set specifically to? I mean, obviously, you can't just come right out and go in on Joe Biden. Like, did you have to kind of find some common ground? I mean, was there a lot of intention in terms of finding some jokes that you can kind of Trojan horse your way into some material that might be a little bit more
Yeah,
divisive later
well,
on in the
yeah, I
set?
had to because they don't know me, so I can't come out there swinging like that. Because then they're gonna go, "Who the hell does this guy think he is, coming in our house and disrespecting us?" So the first joke is on Biden. He's the most powerful person in the room. The next two jokes, one is a fear-based joke. The second joke is a fear joke. The third joke is self-deprecation. So at that point, I still haven't gone at anyone in the room or anything no sacred cows at that point. And Biden thankfully did well, which helped make the document joke work because it was already a jovial, jokey kind of, and he joked with me with the Dark Brandon thing. So in a weird way, there's rapport. There's not a standoffish power dynamic happening between me and the president. So then the second joke is complimenting the audience and saying you got money from the Fox Dominion lawsuit. I'm scared of Dominion. I love Dominion. I don't want Dominion to sue me. Third joke is I know you all think I'm Kenan Thompson. I'm not. So at that point, if you think about this like psychology, I'm being gracious. And then we start getting into, I think George Santos was the next one. And then from Santos, we went Tucker Carlson, Don Lemon. And that's more community bashing. Hey, don't we all not like these people? Joke, joke, joke. Sneak in a little bit of stuff about CNN still being inconsistent and having, like that, and then that's where we started to slowly get into, Santos into the school shooting groaner, and then the groaner joke into Don Lemon, Tucker Carlson.
Yeah. And did you have a pivot in your back pocket if Biden didn't take that joke as graciously as he
No,
did? Would that have changed
no,
things?
no. The jokes were the jokes at that point. I could make a comment on him not liking the joke. It's okay. I know nobody likes it when they find their documents, leaving their documents around. It's like, I tell you what, I'm gonna keep this one and sell it to Russia, or whatever. But if that joke doesn't do well, then you just play it off like it was never intended to be a joke. Because the next thing out of my mouth was, "Hello, how are you doing?"
I saw you perform at City Winery last year, and you told a really personal story about your experience appearing on the PBS show Finding Your Roots, and you found out some, like, really kind of disturbing and personal information about your father in that show. And also I've noticed in Imperfect Messenger and a lot of your stand up, there's a lot of real personal material in there. And I'm wondering, where does that come from? Like, do you find it cathartic to stand and tell maybe painful or difficult stories in front of groups of strangers, or is it more simple than that? Is it just that great writers write what they know?
Yeah, I think it's cathartic in a way. Like, I'm not necessarily trying to do like group therapy and turn the audience into my therapist, but this is what's interesting to me, and it's dark and it's complicated, and I think that's what's relatable.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm saying you could definitely choose to not do comedy that comes from a place of pain or personal exploration, but you do, so I mean, you must get something out of that.
Yeah, you're right what you know. I mean, it's cool to talk about. It's just talking it through. To me, even ultimately with the material about my father, it's just using it as a springboard to make the point to the audience that old people should be passing down their fears and their traumas to their children, not just food recipes. Tell me what you're going through mentally, because the chances are one of your descendants is going through it too, and they need some ideas on what the hell is going on in their head. So you might be able to help your family start at second base in their healing process on something.
I'm curious, was that something that you have used since then? Has that become part of your act, or is that something that you were just really like working out because it was front and center in your mind? And
I was still working that out. I think you're talking about the Neil Brennan show, which was a show specifically where Neil and I agreed that we would only do new stuff and stuff that just really hadn't been fleshed out yet. That's a joke that I'm not even touring with right now this summer. Like, that's a bit that I really want to sit on for one of my hour specials. My next run of hour specials is going to be a trilogy about fatherhood, and that's definitely one of the stories that's going to be in there somehow.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I appreciated that show, just because it's refreshing to see people that it just gives good insight into a comic when you can sense that they're actually saying material that they are fleshing out, and that there's it's not just set up punchline. There's like some real passion in it, and there's some ethos.
Yeah.
So we always like to end this podcast by asking the guests to plug something that they're not personally involved in, that they feel isn't getting enough shine, whether it's like a TV show, a movie, a book, a comic, a social cause. Is there something you want to shout out and give some attention to?
Bumpkiss on Peacock. Pete Davidson is a maniac. That shit is hilarious.
I haven't seen that yet. I'll check that out.
I'm not in it. I am not connected to it in any shape, form, or fashion. But Bumpkiss on Peacock. Pete Davidson is a maniac. That shit is hilarious. It's, I don't know, bro. It's like Entourage meets Atlanta on Staten Island. I don't even know how to compare. I don't even know what to compare it to, but it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. So I'm sorry I don't have a social justice cause.
No, that's good. Sometimes
I've just been binging Bumpkins. That's all I've been doing this week.
That's amazing. I mean, who are you fans of as a comic? Like, who maybe not either from your class or someone from the past. Like, who are you just straight up appreciate their work?
Some More has what I consider to be one of the best Netflix specials of this year so far. I'm sure Wanda Sykes is going to give Some More a run for her money. I haven't seen Wanda's yet. There's this young brother, Niles Abston, that's making some noise. He's more of a writer-director as well. He's a Swiss Army knife. But I really think that he's got some solid material and he's got a good head on his shoulders. And the homegirl Paris Sachet, I like Paris too. She's funny.
And when doing jokes that are topical in nature or that have like a bent of like kind of a social justice element, what are your thoughts on this notion of whether you can do jokes that punch up or punch down? I mean, do you make that distinction, or should comedy just be about what's fair and what's funny? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think comedy should be whatever's funny to the performer. The audience can decide whether they want to laugh or not. I don't think any performer should be changing what they do and don't say. You just have to know that there's certain people aren't going to rock with you. Certain companies may not work with you. Certain venues may not book you. But I'll always be a supporter of a comedian saying whatever the hell they do, whatever want to come out their mouth, say that shit. For me personally, I find more fun in going to unexpected places with punchlines that people wouldn't have predicted. So, that's just how I choose to build my act.
Interesting. Well, Roy, I really appreciate it. I know you got a lot on your plate. You've been a busy man, and I look forward to coming out and seeing you later on this summer. So thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it.